I am the owner of Olivia J Holland Knitted Textiles brand. And yeah, welcome. I'm just here to talk to you today about my work, my process, give you a little demonstration. You can sort of see my studio behind me. That's our lovely orange door. So yeah, I guess I'll start with how I came to do this. I was always a lover of art at school. And I decided that I wanted to pursue that, and I went and did an art foundation at Camberwell College of Arts, and there you kind of work through different specialisms, and I really enjoyed the fashion textiles specialism, and my tutor at the time said to me that I had a kind of knack for textiles, I suppose, and that I should go on and do that. So I went to Chelsea Art College and did textiles there, which was amazing. Yeah, I met amazing people. I learned so much. There's amazing teachers, amazing equipment, and you spend the first year experimenting with different types of textiles. So I tried weaving, I tried printing, a bit of digital print, and then stitch, which is a lot of fabric manipulation, and then knit as well. And I, for some reason, chose knitwear. I found it so tricky. The machinery that you have to use takes quite a while to get the hang of, and there was a lot of frustrating moments, but I guess I kind of liked the challenge of it, and so I went with knitwear and then specialized in that. Anyway, fast forward, I kind of finished my degree, and I worked a little bit. I've done lots of different jobs, but I decided that I wanted to set up my own business making, because that's what I was really enjoyed and really missed actually from uni, is making and having a machine to knit on. So I set up my business. I had a little studio in Crystal Palace at first, and then I had a studio at home. I moved at home. We had a spare room at the time. And then I discovered Cockpit Arts, which is a business incubator for craftspeople. So there's so many businesses here, like jewelers and ceramicists and everything. And I really loved it. I went to the open studios, which were amazing, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I applied, and I was lucky enough to win an award, which granted me a space for a year, and then I stayed on. It's a really wonderful place to be, wonderful place to work. It now houses my industrial knitting machine, which you can see here, which I'll give you a little demonstration on. And yeah, that's just where I've been for, I think, maybe three years now. And it's been a bit different recently. Obviously, the lockdown, I didn't come in for quite a while, so I was working at home doing kind of behind the scenes stuff, but I can't. My machine is so big and it weighs about 200 kilos, so I can't really move it easily. So I'm just getting back into it now, just getting back into the studio. And yeah, slowly people are starting to come back, which is really nice because we've got a lovely community here. And yeah, it's great to be a maker here.
Olivia.
Yes.
So how long you've been working? I didn't get that, because how many years have you been doing your own business?
My own business, so 4 years, coming up to 5 years. It was very part-time at first. I would say it's about 4 years, but it kind of started very much as a side thing, and then has, taken precedence over time.
And you talk about a lot of ethical side of your business. So can you just tell us a little bit more about?
Yeah, of course. So I think that there is obviously a lot of conversation at the moment within the fashion industry, the textile industry, about sustainability, about ethical production, everything like that. And I think if you're putting something out into the world now, for me, it's important that it comes from a good place and that it's made in as an ethical way as possible. So for me, my concept around sustainability and ethical production is the fact that it is all handmade by me, absolutely everything. There's a few finishing processes that I sometimes outsource to this lovely place in Kent. It's a factory that's been running for ages. It's about, maybe five or six ladies in there who work, and they just do hand sewing, machine sewing. They do ties for loads of people, Paul Smith, lots of finishing processes, and I sometimes send my ties there for finishing, but everything else is handmade by me in the studio. My materials are all sourced through really reputable companies, and I mainly make to order. So I make a sample collection which is then sold, but I don't make tons and tons of stock, which I then have left over. Most of my pieces are made to order. And one thing that's really important to me is product longevity. So I did a lot of research at university actually into how you can design emotionally and thoughtfully so that a piece lasts a really long time in someone's life and they value it for a long time. And that's something that I've taken forward into my business, and try to ensure that everything that I create is of the highest standard and has longevity in the sense that it's not really trend driven. It's very much driven by colors that kind of can work through the seasons, materials like silk that also can work through the seasons, and something that people can keep in their wardrobe forever really and keep on wearing time and time again. So that's sort of how I approach the sustainability and ethical side of my business.
That's good. One of the things is like that, a lot of designers I hear they're doing made to order, and like you are doing as well. So that means it's a commission based. So people can choose colors they want to, or you have a set color palette for the season.
So both actually. So the way that I work is I tend to design usually about one collection a year. It's not really set. It takes a lot of energy and time, obviously, to create new work. And so that's sort of what I can manage. I sometimes do add in new bits here and there, but that's roughly what I do. And that collection is on my website, on the Handmade in Britain website. It's what I take to shows and events, and that's what people see and they can order that. And I when I have events and things, I might make a few of a piece to sell if it's kind of a direct selling event, but mostly I just have the yarn in the studio, and if someone orders, I make it to order. But I also run a bespoke side of my business and customization, so they're slightly different. I do quite a lot of bespoke and customized pieces actually, especially for weddings, for example. I often do ties, to match the colors of the wedding. I've done, lots of bespoke kind of wide wintry scarves as well. And that's a whole different process. That's more email me and I can customize the colors. So if it's a design from the collection, and you just want to change the color, that's quite simple. That's one sort of side of it. And the other side is totally bespoke. So that would be a client coming to me and saying that, I don't know, they want a specific pattern, or they want something for a gift or something. And we work together to create something that is totally new for them. So that's bespoke. And I do that as well, but it's just a slightly different process than made to order.
So I'm sure that you're going to show us some of the yarns and the products as well in a bit. But one of the questions we have it already is that, as you have already answered some of it, but which events do you sell at? We know that you're selling at Handmade in Britain website, you sell through your own website, but what are the other face-to-face events you're doing at the moment?
Okay, so as I mentioned before, my studio is Corporate Arts. We do open studios twice a year. We do summer open studios, which would have been a couple of weeks ago, but obviously was cancelled. So it's around June time, and then we do winter open studios, which is the end of November, beginning of December. It changes, and that is a direct selling event where it's a whole weekend, and the public are able to come in to our studios. You can see where I make everything. I sometimes do little demonstrations as well, and you can see all of my work. and that's a great opportunity also to sort of talk about commissions if you're interested in that. So that's twice a year that I do that. I also do a show called Made London, which is Tutton and Young are the company, and Made London, it's in Marylebone, and this year I'm signed up to do it this year, and it's the first weekend of November. At the moment it's going ahead. We have to wait and see, obviously, because of things. We're not sure if they can have that many people and things, but for now that's all I've got planned for the coming year. But there's usually a few more events around Christmas. They're just not, it's kind of hard to put them in this year just because no one really knows what's happening. But I've done Dulwich Craft Fair. I have done London Design Fair in the past as well, which is in September. And Craft Week as well, actually. Craft Week was cancelled because of the coronavirus, but that's usually around May time, and I tend to do an exhibition, like a group exhibition, during then. And I sometimes do a few trade shows, but they're more for shops and interior designers and things like that. So direct selling, it's mainly the open studios and maybe one or two other events a year as well. But I also, just to note, if you ever, especially at the moment, because events are kind of up in the air, I always offer studio appointments. So if you're interested in a piece and you feel like you want to see it in person or try it on, which a lot of people do, you can just email me and you can come in and into the studio and try things on and have a chat. So I also always offer that as well.
Great. I think we would love to see some of your work and how you do it.
Yeah, okay, cool. So as Piyush said, I'm a knitter. So everything is knitted on this industrial knitting machine. It's an Italian machine. It's huge, but beautiful to use. So I thought I might just give a little demo of me knitting so you can see, and then I'll show you some pieces and some yarn as well, and some of my other tools that I use as well as the machine. So just move this slightly so you can see. Okay, so this is a little demonstration. I'm knitting at the moment. I'll show you. So this is a piece that has just come off the machine. So this isn't washed. I finished this today. This is a narrow scarf, broken dash design, and you'll see the difference between this piece of fabric and a finished piece. So here you can see this is a finished scarf. You can just see the difference in washing. You can see that beautiful shine on the silk. This is one that's just come off the machine. It's slightly stiffer. You can kind of see the drape here. It just hangs beautifully. After knitting, I wash everything by hand really gently, just because the machine, it's so old and it's a mechanical machine, so it needs oil to keep it moving smoothly. And the yarn, when you're knitting, it gets a coating of oil on it. So I wash everything afterwards and then steam it as well. So that kind of sets the knit and brings the material to its best quality. Okay, so I'll do a little demo now. You can see here, this is the knitting that I have started already. And you will see, hopefully, as I knit, you will see, I mean, it's quite slow, but you'll see it comes through the machine like that.
So how long does it take you to make a scarf?
So it varies. So the scarf, which I'm doing now, is approximately, I would say approximately 3 hours of knitting on the machine, and then so that includes casting on and casting off. And then afterwards, I have to obviously hand wash it, and then I steam it, which maybe is about half an hour, and then finishing as well. So all in all, the narrow scarf is probably about 4 hours. The ties that I make, the knitting is a bit quicker because it's less material. So they're about an hour and a half knitting, but the finishing time, which is all hand sewing, is really time consuming. So they end up about the same time. And then I also have wide scarves. The wide silk scarves are about 5 hours. And then I have scarves which are a combination of silk and some sort of wool, so cashmere or merino. I'll show you some of those in a minute. They're much more intricate, and they can take between 6 to 8 hours to make. And then I also have some large pieces, throws as well, which I've just started, and they take a couple of days to knit. So you can see what I'm pulling across now. This thing here, this is the carriage, and this is what you bring across the needle bed, and that's what knits the fabric. And then everything that I'm sort of clicking around here, this is changing various things on the machine so that it creates the pattern that I've designed. The buttons at the top, which, there we go, these here, these are the yarn, they select the yarn feeders. So you can see here, I've got the pink, which is one color I'm using, and then all the way down the other end, I've got this color, fawn. And these buttons select the feeders, which each contain the different colors. So when I want to do a pink row, I select the pink feeder. And when I want to do the row with the fawn color, I select that one. And this pattern, it combines the two. So I do 2 of each, but one of them is a full row and the other one is a row with the design on.
So is it quite a boring task, if I may ask, doing doing very repetitive stuff?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It can. I don't think boring is maybe the right description, but it can be repetitive. It is repetitive, but in some ways there is sort of a beauty in that, because it becomes quite sort of meditative, especially, I mean, not now, but usually when I'm here on my own, I listen to a podcast or music, and I just really get in the zone. And I'm going quite slowly now because I'm trying to sort of talk and demonstrate, but I get quite fast on the machine, and I kind of zone out of the world, listen to my music, and yeah, it can get boring when if I've done a big order, for example, for a shop, and I'm doing the same design, the same colors over and over again. It can after a while, but I quite enjoy the repetition, and even now, I still get that satisfaction when it's done and I cast it off the machine, which is a laborious task in itself, and it comes off, and I just feel so satisfied that I've created that from a cone of yarn. So it can be repetitive, but in an enjoyable way. And at the moment, I'm not so much in the production stage. I'm in the design stage because I'm creating a new collection. So that's really enjoyable. Even the pattern, when it's repetitive, it's still great as it comes through to see how it's working, see how the colors are layering on top of each other. Maybe I can make a change to it. Maybe I can add a stripe of another color, so that when I'm designing, the making process is great because I'm seeing the collection unfold before my eyes, and I'm making decisions as I go, really, as I make. And especially this collection, it's all limited edition one-off pieces, so they do have random stripes of color, or I might just change the design halfway through, and it ending up with a really special piece. So yeah,
I know what you see, what you mean, because in my past life I was a weaver. I used to hand
okay.
weave. So
Of
it
course.
from yarn to fabric, I can understand it's very fulfilling when you see the yarns becoming a pattern and a fabric. So yes, it can be repetitive, but not boring, especially when you're at the designing stage.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, I start with these. So I start with a cone or two of yarn. This is silk yarn, which is mainly what I use. And I will, yeah, I'll start with two of these, and then I end up with a whole wearable piece of work. And yeah, I find that really, I think it's just makers in general, it's probably why we do it, because it's so nice to, it's just nice to create something new and put something new in the world that wasn't there before. So I'll do a little bit more knitting, and then I'm going to show you some of the other tools that I use with the machine.
Sure.
You can hopefully see now, if I move it down slightly. As I said, it's quite a slow process, so you won't see a huge change, but you can see it as I knit coming through the middle of the machine.
And where did you get your knitting machine from?
So it's an Italian machine. I got it from a company called Tortex, but sorry, just adjust this. So these machines, they're not made anymore, really. My machine is over 100 years old, and they're industrial knitting machines, which is what this is. It's a hand flapped Santo Agostino industrial knitting machine. They used to be used in industry for production, but obviously with technology and everything, most production nowadays is digitalized. So these machines sort of became not obsolete, but they're just not really used in factories anymore. So you can't buy them new, but there is a few people in the UK, two that I know of, who source the parts from all over the world. So the brand, I suppose, that most people have heard of and use at university is called Dubier. And often people call these machines Dubiers because they're the most well-known brand, but actually Dubier was just a Swiss company who made a lot of these machines. Santo Agostino, which I've got, is an Italian brand, and there's also German. I think those are the main three. And yes, there's a couple of people in the UK who source parts from these countries or buy old machines and just restore them. So it's a really long process, but polishing, obviously the metal rust, so polishing it all up, cleaning them, putting them together, fixing anything that's damaged, and then you buy it sort of as it's not new, but it's as good as new machine. And then for the upkeep, one thing that I love is it's so solid, and not much can go wrong with it if you look after it. So I have to keep it clean. I have to oil it occasionally. I should probably more than I do, but maybe once a year, take out all of the needles, which is a lot. It's 120 centimeters wide, the bed. You can see it's really long, and there's 12 needles per inch of mine. So I've got a 12 gauge, which is really fine. You create really fine knitwear, and the fibres from the yarn over time, they get sort of caught up in the needles. So I tend to always clean the section that I'm working with regularly, but the other bits get a bit forgotten. So yeah, you should really do that once a year, and keep it clean, keep it working. But this, I've been using this for years now, and it's never had an issue, which is great, and more than I can say for computers and things like that. So it's nice to work on something that is so reliable. And then there's a few other bits that I use that I guess are sort of essential to using the machine. So the first thing, I'll just show you a few tools, might be interesting. So the first thing is, as you can see on the knitting here, it's attached, it's got this sort of white messy yarn. This is the waste yarn. This is what you always use to cast on, so that you get a nice edge of your actual design. And to attach the yarn to the machine, we use what's called a comb, and this is this. So I'll show you a bit clearer here. So you can see it's got all of these teeth. And what you do to start the knitting is you put this up in between the two needle beds, and you bring the yarn across using the carriage that I showed you, use the waste yarn, and then that yarn attaches in and out like that, it hooks. So the difference between weaving and knitting actually is the construction, and a knitted fabric is created by lots of hooks, loops, kind of hooked together. If that makes sense. So it hooks onto all of these teeth. You then pull this down and you keep it tight using weights. So I've got various different types. These are quite light ones. I've also got these sort of hefty weights, depending on the size of the knitting. These hook onto the comb, and they pull the knitting tight, and they keep the tension tight and the knitting totally flat, so that when you're making, when you pull the yarn across, it doesn't get caught in between the needles, because you need the weight to sort of pull what you've made down through, so that it doesn't get caught in the current row of knitting. So there are a few things that you have to have. And then I'd show you, firstly, actually a needle. So I always have a few needles just on the machine in case I drop a stitch. They're also quite good for sort of cleaning fibres and things. And these tiny little needles are what does the knitting. So the entire bed, there's two beds like this, and both of them are covered in needles next to each other like this. And when you're knitting, it basically hooks onto this little thing, and these go up and down as you pull the carriage across. And you will, I don't know, I'm sure there's some knitters watching, maybe hand knitters as well. This sort of replicates knitting needles, like a chunky knitting needle. And if you have a domestic knitting machine, they're the same sorts of needles, but domestic knitting machines will be much chunkier. Although you can also get chunky industrial machines. And then lastly, you've got these. These are transfer tools. So you've got a 1-prong transfer tool and 2-prong. You can see there. So the 1-prong transfer tool I use to cast off. So when you finish the knitting, you need to seal the edge so that it doesn't run when you cut it off of the comb. So you use this to transfer the stitches across, and then loop the other yarn through, and that creates a neat edge. And this 2-pronged transfer tool, this is for shaping. So most of my work is a straight rectangle shape, so I don't need to do shaping, but for my ties I do, because they've got, I'll show here, you can see it's got the wider section, and the narrower section. So I have to shape, you can see it's a gradual change in the width. Also, if you're making clothes, fully fashioned knitwear, jumpers, things like that, then you need often a two-prong transfer tool to do that, because it's just quicker. Instead of doing one stitch at a time, you can do 2 stitches at a time. And you can also get these, I mean, you can get these with, they've got sort of five needles in. So yeah, you can do that as well. And they're sort of the main things that I use. Obviously, scissors are important. Tape measure is really important, so I know that I'm knitting the right length. So yeah, I think if I can just show you some of my pieces that I'm doing at the moment, I'll show you a few pieces that are on the Handmade in Britain website, and then also maybe 1 or 2 new things, my new collection, which is launching probably September, October. So this is one one piece that I have got on the Handmade in Britain website. So this is a wide silk scarf in the ovals design. I absolutely love this design because it's well, everything is two-sided, but this, you can see the color changes between each side. So here we've got this colorway, and the other side, it changes. So it's got much lighter, the other side. Maybe if I show you next to each other. So can you see the difference between the 2 sides? So it's really nice, a scarf. I mean, it's so lovely anyway, a scarf when both sides are nice, because when you wrap it round, you don't want to have to worry about, oh no, you can see the underside or something. Whereas this is really lovely that you've got 2 sides, and actually you can style it in such a way where if you want this darker side showing more, you can do that, or the same with the lighter side. So that's one piece available on Handmade in Britain, the ovals wide silk scarf. This is £200. I also have, actually I'll show you this one. So ties, so scarves and ties are my main products at the moment anyway. I'll show you one larger piece I have, and then also quickly tell you about a project that's coming up. This is a tie. This is the orange, lilac and royal blue tricolor broken dash silk tie. So this is available on Handmade in Britain. It's £135 a tie. The main colour is this gorgeous bright orange, and then the 2 sort of, I call it dash design because these just look like dashes to me. These are alternating between royal blue and lilac. So it looks, the light looks quite white, but this is the lilac. So really gorgeous, so shiny, that colour. So that's one tie available, and then I'll also show you this, which is slightly more refined. Thanks, David. This is the dipped textured check tie, also £135. All my ties are the same price actually. So you can see here, can you see that shimmer of the silk? Is so lovely. So you've got at the bottom, so at the bottom of the blade of the tie, so you'd see this just sort of at the bottom of your shirt. You've got the orange and blue checks, and then I stop the orange and I continue the same pattern, but just in one color. So you just get the blue, but you can see you still get that lovely texture. So it's really subtle. but really nice. And also, especially if you want something that's a bit, maybe not so loud as something like this, which I love. I mean, you can probably tell I love colors. I always use color and everything. So I love something like that. But for some people, they want something a bit maybe smarter for work or something like that. This tie is a great one because it's really simple, but then it has this cool little detail at the end. And then maybe, I don't know, is there any questions? And if not, so people buying for everyday use or special occasions. Both actually. So I would say I have a lot of customers that buy for special occasions, as I said, for maybe a wedding, or a birthday, or the wide scarves like this. I mean, obviously, sadly, loads of weddings have been cancelled this year, but something like this is so lovely, just to sort of drape over the shoulders. It's a lovely length, so you can wear it in so many different ways. But you know, a summer wedding, you've got a lovely dress, something like this just keeps you warm in the evening. So occasions like that, definitely. Obviously, ties for weddings. But I also get people who buy ties for work. I get people who buy scarves to wear throughout the winter, throughout the summer even. I have some people, so this is a narrow scarf. I don't have, this colorway is new, so this isn't available yet. It will be further on in the year. So this is olive green and pink, shell pink. It's a lovely pink. It's kind of a peach tone pink. And it's got this lovely mint green detail on the edge. This is the narrow size. The narrow scarves are £130. There's a couple, I've got a lovely brown and navy one on Handmade in Britain at the moment. I think a few other colours as well. These are so versatile. So these are much more an everyday scarf, I think. I wear mine every day. So you can just wrap it like this. Normal. It's actually kind of, if you tie it really tight, it can be sort of like a cravat type style. You can also wear draped over the shoulders like that, across the neck like that.
I think your colors are gorgeous. I must say that. I think it suits. Yes, it's beautiful color combination. And so, where is your inspiration coming from?
So, I usually from a place. So my previous collections are the Lisbon collection, which was inspired from a trip to Lisbon. Then I had the Glacial collection that was inspired from a trip to Iceland, and most recently the Berlin collection, which was inspired by Berlin. So I love taking photos. I'm not a photographer, but I love going to a place and just capturing everything that I find inspiring, whether that's a building, floors, people, and then I come back to the studio and I do drawings and I draw out the colors from my images that I love, and then it just takes a while to sort of group them together, refine them, and see what works together. And that's how I tend to come up with my color palettes. So it's very organic, and I feel that by doing it that way and being inspired by photos of a place, the collection then often reflects that place, because you get, so the Glacial collection was quite, which there are a few, Handmade in Britain has got a few from different collections. The Glacial collection was quite blue, quite calm, a little more toned down in its color. And then the Berlin collection, which this, for example, is a part of, is much brighter. There's a lot of amazing street art in Berlin. The people in Berlin have quite kind of quirky dress sense as well. So it's quite a colorful city.
I would be very curious to see the Berlin, because you know that I live in Berlin. So
oh, really?
I'm chatting to you from Berlin at the moment.
I didn't know that. Amazing.
So,
It's such a great city.
Of course, I love the city. I spend my time between London and Berlin. So 70% Berlin now, 30% London I do. But
Yeah.
yes, so I would be curious to see that collection. But we have one more question from someone. They want to know that, do you make a really wide shawl style? Because your machine is 120 centimeter wide. Would you ever do that?
What, a really wide scarf?
Shawl, yeah, it's a shawl style, you know?
Yeah, so what, so a short scarf or
Sorry, shawl. It's like a throw, but it's like a big
oh yeah,
shawl.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll show you. So yeah, so I have started doing larger pieces. So they're not always exactly 120, just because the way that knitting is, you knit it really tightly, and then when it comes off of the machine, it sort of contracts slightly. So it's usually more like maybe a meter 10 wide, but this is a really large piece. So you can see the width here. It's, if I get it up close, it's my version of a sort of tartan check. So you have this check on the front, and then on the back you have really fine stripes, and this is huge. And this, so I have one, this is silk and cashmere merino. I have 100% silk one at home, which I have over my sofa as a sort of lovely luxurious blanket, but they're also, you can wear, so they're really versatile because you can.
This is beautiful. I love the colors. Yeah,
See
it's
now,
really, really,
I'm
really.
not very tall, so you can't really see too well, but it's a lovely, you can sort of bunch it up. So you just have this really luxurious piece to wrap around. And it feels amazing. And it's versatile because you can have it as a piece of interiors for your home, and you can wear it. And I am also, one thing I just wanted to mention is, as well as my new collection, accessories collection, which is launching September, October, I'm also doing a new product this year, which is a sort of kimono style jacket. So it will be something like this really, but one piece that you put on, and totally reversible. I'm going to try out with different lengths, so maybe some are short, some are longer, and that will be a lovely huge piece that you can wear sort of over anything. So that's something that I'm playing around with this year, as well as larger pieces as well.
Thank you, Olivia. I think we are running slightly out of time, so I have one last question for you before we wrap it up. It's like, has lockdown inspired your next collection, and what's next for you?
Yes, lockdown has actually totally inspired my next collection. So the kimonos was something I've been wanting to do for a while, and it gave me the time to do that. But my accessories collection, I was inspired because obviously it's been quite hard to source materials for a lot of makers, because production has kind of stopped in various parts of the world. I get a lot of my yarn from Italy, and they obviously have to dye it and everything, and a lot of the factories were shut for a while, so I had a really limited supply. I couldn't really get much new yarn, and so I was looking in my studio and thinking, I often design in the summer, and I was thinking, how can I create new work when I can't access new materials and I can't pick new color palettes like I normally do. And I'm having a look around, and I just realized I've got so much yarn here anyway, so I have maybe surplus from other collections, from, as we were talking about earlier, bespoke projects where I have to buy in specific amounts. Not always big things like this, but I've got so many just little spools of yarn like this. And so my next collection is called Waste Not Want Not. It's inspired by the whole sort of, I guess, wartime spirit, make do and mend, make do with what you have, and minimize waste, really. So my challenge and the way I'm designing is I'm not buying any new yarn at all. I am designing purely with what I have in the studio. And that was totally inspired by lockdown because of limited access to new materials. But actually, it's been really exciting to work in a new way. And instead of designing a color palette as I normally do, I'm looking at the colors I have. I'm testing what works well together. I'm trying, which colors work with which design. I'm kind of where I've got really small amounts here that isn't going to make a whole scarf. I'm just adding sort of little bits of color here and there, adding contrasting trims to pieces, things like that. So it's been a really nice way of working, and
sounds good. Yeah. Before we go, any final wash care instructions about your product when people buy your product? What is the wash care?
What's the what? Sorry.
How do they take care of the scarf? How can they wash?
Washing care, yes. So just gentle hand wash. If you prefer to dry clean, you can dry clean it, but it can be washed. Don't use much heat, just really cool water, gentle hand wash. Don't rub it too much because the silk is really delicate. And if you can, I use a silk and wool specific detergent, which I just put a small amount of in the bowl, hand wash it, rinse, and then you can hang it to dry because it's not particularly heavy, so it doesn't stretch. But you can, if you want to use a normal detergent, you can. It's just sometimes the silk and wool ones tend to be slightly more gentle, which just for the longevity of the product is better.
Fantastic. Great. So before we wrap it up, any last words would you like to say to our viewers?
I guess just thank you for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this and seeing what I do. And just head to Handmade in Britain and have a look at what's on offer, because there's some lovely pieces there. So I'd love to send them out to you.
Thank you, Olivia. It was fantastic, and we really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much so, because with the textiles background. Next week we have Shakti Ellen Wood, who will be showing her ethical gold jewelry and her processes. So tune in with us next Wednesday, 4 p.m. Take care. Bye-bye.